Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. And in this video, I wanted to do something different and talk about the most important aspect of humanity. The things that separate us from our animalistic tendencies and allow us to coexist with each other on this planet. Now, there's an interesting problem facing our advanced, progressive, Western democratic society: empathy. The ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand and share in their feelings. This is declining in the West, not just with millennials, but in our society as a whole. There could be many reasons for this, one being the increased exposure we have to violent imagery on our news feeds and televisions, which experts believe can desensitize a person to cruelty. Experts say exposure to violent media numbs people to the pain of others, which would be an understandable reason for declining empathy. Now, I don't want to sound like a nagging mother telling you not to play violent video games, and that theory could be wrong, but there's potentially other reasons why this could be happening right now. In 2008, CBS ran a story about Generation Y that described millennials as cynical, unaccustomed to hard work, and having fragile egos, attributing this to childhoods filled with trophies, participation medals, and adulation that didn't prepare them for the cold realities of work. An expert on Generation Y recently said that they are a pampered and nurtured generation, being both high performance and high maintenance with a very high sense of self-worth, basically Generation X on steroids. And if you look at human society, the possibilities of comforts and attainment of being famous or important have never been as glorified as it is today, especially with mainly depressed people overcoming their own issues by showing off on social media. A major study also found that students today, compared to those in the late 1970s, are 40% lower in empathy than their counterparts of the 20 or 30 years ago. This was a huge study that had 14,000 participants. The study looked at behaviors like helping a stranger carry their belongings, allowing someone ahead in a lineup, giving help to a homeless person, or assisting a friend. The researchers reported that there has been a 48% decrease in empathetic concerns between 1979 and 2009. The researchers also reported that today's college students were less likely to have empathetic feelings for people who are less fortunate than them. Another study concluded that young adults today comprise one of the most self-concerned, competitive, confident, and individualistic cohorts in recent history. Okay, so now we have the research and the results. Let's ask, why is this happening? Social networking allows young people to lionize their own lives and create a buffer between individuals, which makes it a lot easier to ignore other people's pain or even at times inflict pain onto others. So, what they are suggesting is that the growing emphasis on the self by young people has created a lower emphasis on others. It makes sense. In an increasingly competitive and individualistic environment, ruthlessness and coldness can be an asset for some. Even in this YouTube news space where I have dealt with these kinds of people and have been actually hurt because of their actions, only because of their greater aspirations. Another expert argues that part of this explanation for decreased levels of empathy for young people may be a result of changing in parenting styles in the late 1980s, when parents focused on nurturing, if not spoiling children, and focused on success and competition. The researchers observed that young people today may be so busy worrying about themselves and their own issues that they don't have the time to spend empathizing with others, or at least perceive such time to be very limited. Now, younger people are more self-assured than their parents, but they also are more depressed. Now, this is an argument based on 14 years of research. There's also just the truth that our expectations are highly optimistic. We expect to go to college, to make lots of money, and perhaps even to be famous. Yet, our generation enters a world in which college admission is increasingly competitive and costly, putting people into debt. Good jobs are hard to find and harder to keep, and basic necessities like housing and healthcare have skyrocketed in price. This is a time of soaring expectations and crushing realities. The gap between what they have and what they want has never been greater. Generation Y has been taught to put themselves first. Unlike baby boomers, they didn't have to march in a protest or attend a group session to realize that their own needs and desires were important. Television, movies, and school programs have pushed the idea that everyone should be entitled to certain expectations, and the result is a wonderful sense of hopelessness tinged with narcissism and a lack of interest in others. However, young people today have had to overcome many challenges that their parents didn't. For example, while families of the boomer generation could once achieve a middle class status on the earnings of just a single high school educated person, it now takes two college educated earners to reach the same standards of living. Many Generation Yers feel that the world demands perfection in everything, and some are cracking under the pressure. Many of them in their 20s today find that their jobs do not provide the fulfillment and excitement that they had anticipated, and their salaries are not enough to have the lifestyles that they wanted or even to get them to the property ladder. We are moving to a new age of social concerns, while at the same time, the last throes of narcissistic, materialistic, and externally focused values are embraced. A contradiction, a paradox, perhaps. Millennials are incredibly social and environmentally aware, but at the same time, many have been preoccupied with keeping their heads above the water and don't really have the time to be putting in themselves. As a society, we are becoming more and more fractured, insular, and busy. These millennial issues are perhaps a telling sign of the effects of our increasingly cold culture. Perhaps this is why we stand more divided than ever on social issues, politics, religion, and culture, whenever the cause. Western society is becoming less empathetic, and it's something we really ought to have a look at if we want to keep the integrity of the social fabric and humanity together. Or maybe I'm just being a snowflake, soft, empathetic pussy. If you think that, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you again so much for watching. If this message resonated with you, share it with your friends and family members. And of course, thank you from the bottom of my heart for donating to Real Independent Media, allowing me to be here. And that's why I love you. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more.